My presentation today is Amicide 700, a new product for fleabane control. It's a new product in terms it's a new formulation of a product that's been used for many, many years, unregistered if you like. Also at the end I'll just touch on a product that was spoken about last night. I'll give an update on Sharpen and where we're up to with the registration of Sharpen. So as I said, Amicide 700 is a registered new formulation of 2,4-D, is registered for fleabane control in fallow and also in wheat and barley. The key take-home message, and it's nothing new, anybody that's been involved with fleabane, target young seedling fleabane. Registration with this is for a coarse spray, and we prefer to see a higher water volume, 70 litres as a minimum for control. And when you're up against bigger fleabane, which I'll show you the data later, have a strategy of that sequential application strategy of a 2,4-D followed by a paraquat is for best control. So what is Amicide 700? Well, it's a replacement product for two products that we already have in the marketplace in Amicide 625 and Surpass 475. Many of you will be aware of those products. It's a 700 gram per litre formulation of a dual salt, a dimethylamine salt and a monomethylamine salt. It is a amine formulation, and I'm not sure how well you can see the photo down the back, but that's some 2,4-D that was actually sprayed. I sprayed that in cotton just to demonstrate that it is not a volatile product. It's an amine formulation, and we got a nice sharp edge along the edge of where we sprayed and nothing downwind or down the row. So it didn't move from where it is an amine formulation. So we now got one product for those two uses because they did have separate use patterns, those two formulations of 2,4-D. It's obviously compatible with our Roundup branded products. It's stronger, and our new label claims, as I said, are in terms of fleabane. That's the label. I won't go into that in detail, but I'll talk about it later. Its use rate ranges from 650 mils to 1.1 litres, and I'll go through that strategy shortly. And also, as I said, registered in wheat and barley at 1.4 litres per hectare for fleabane. So, what strategy do we need to adopt when managing fleabane? Many of you in this audience have been through these sort of presentations before, so some of this information won't be new, but I've been working on fleabane for over 10 years now, and I think the key, not surprisingly, the key to controlling fleabane is targeting small to large rosettes. So I've put that in winter, because in the northern region it tends to be, we get a germination in early winter or early spring. So that could be early spring, but in general I'm referring to small to large rosettes rather than winter. So young, small rosettes are easier to control, and that doesn't come as a surprise to anybody, and a sequential application will pick up any new germinations. It's not a weed that we can control with one spray for various reasons, stubble, etc. You just can't hit the beast. When it comes to spring and summer, we'll have a range of growth stages from rosette right up to flowering plants, and we need to adopt a different strategy for management of that. Larger plants are more difficult to control. We'll have plants in this period here that may well have germinated in early winter. So a sequential application strategy is generally preferred in that spring, summer is what I call it. What I call the large stuff tends to be in the spring and summer. Might be a bit hard to see. I always refer, when I'm talking about fleabane control, about targeting the seedling age. These two photos here, this was about 6 weeks after an autumn break, if you like, and it's a little hard to see, but we've got what we call small young fleabane. It's probably up to about 4 leaf there. This is about 55 days later. They don't look a lot bigger, but they've probably got a good taproot on them and they're more difficult to control. This is more typical of what we see. We'll see plants ranging from very small, about the 4 or 5 leaf stage, right up to things here and here that are just starting to elongate. This is what we tend to see in the northern region when we get a good spring rain, if you like, so late August, early September. We'll have fleabane ranging anywhere from the smaller rosettes up to stuff that's just starting to elongate, up to this size and right up to stuff, and then across out into the summer the stuff that we're seeing in paddocks now that's flowering and very difficult to control. We've been chasing it all summer. In terms of the strategy with Amicide Advance, when we're targeting cotyledon to 12-leaf rosettes, we do, particularly in the winter time, get an advantage from the addition of Roundup. In this case, it's Roundup Powermax to your Amicide Advance. Now, the assumption here is that these fleabane are glyphosate susceptible. There are quite a few populations around that are more tolerant at that early growth stage to glyphosate, which doesn't have a fleabane registration. So what this is showing here, that in the winter period against these smaller rosettes, we tend to get an advantage of adding some glyphosate to our Amicide Advance. When we start getting into that spring, early summer period where we've got elongating to flowering plants, we don't see that advantage of the addition of glyphosate to your Amicide Advance. Regardless of whether it's the small cotyledon, the 12-leaf or the elongating plants, the sequential application strategy of a Roundup Amicide Advance followed by a paraquat gives us high levels of control, even of those bigger flowering plants. So that's the sort of strategy that we like to adopt in that spring and summer period, particularly against the bigger flowering plants.
Frank, when you say sequential, how many days?
In general, most of this work we were looking at about 7 to 14 days. When growers have been caught, I have known them to go out to 21 days and still get a fair result. This is just some work that was done at Copper Creek back in August, and it's just demonstrating a Roundup attack, Amicide Advance on stuff you can see there in this particular field, ranging from smallish right up to stuff that was just about to start elongating. So that's worked quite well there. Complete control of the fleabane. When we get into late spring, as you saw from the earlier photos, and here we get a range of growth sizes. We've got stuff that's smallish. We've got stuff that's starting to run up. Again, it's getting into that period now where it's starting to become a little bit more difficult to control with a single application. So a split sequential application of a Roundup followed by a paraquat is giving us high levels of control. In fact, in this particular work here, we were going from 10 centimetre rosettes right up to elongating budding plants, and we're getting complete control with that sequential application strategy. The standalone treatment of a Roundup Roundup Amicide wasn't giving us high levels of control that you'd like, and you can see from the photos that's the sort of job we're getting with that treatment there. This is what's common. What do we see when we harvest our winter cereal and we get a good spring rain? We get a paddock full of fleabane. If we've done nothing in the winter cereals to manage fleabane, and that's the key. If we can manage fleabane in our winter cereals, we'll go a long way to controlling our summer fallow issues. This scenario was sprayed in 3 different timings here. Standard treatment Roundup Amicide was giving us about 85% control. When we followed it with paraquat, either at 3 days, 7 days or 14 days, we got in excess of probably 95% control there and high levels of control there. So on those bigger plants, you can see there that the single strategy gives good control, but not, with a population of those sort of numbers of plants, it's not giving us good enough control, whereas the sequential application with the paraquat is lifting that control pretty much near to 100%. Bit hard to see the photos there, but that's the straight Roundup Amicide Advance. You can just start to see it's starting to regrow here. You come in with the sequential application strategy and we're getting complete control of those plants. What do we do when we get this? And this is not uncommon. Many of you have seen fields like this. I actually said just slash it because most of the seed's already on the ground. However, strategy there was a Roundup Amicide Advance giving us about 70% control. So on big plants, the sequential application strategy gave us pretty high levels of control in that late summer period, which is probably around about now where that trial was sprayed. That's the sort of job we got there. So you can see there, you may be able to see there's quite a few green plants in there, whereas in this plot here, it's very clean. So I guess the message, if you've got big fleabane, the double knock or sequential application strategy, particularly in those summer months, is the key to getting good results. Just to summarise, this is the new label registrations for Amicide Advanced. So we've got two sections on the label. One will be the cotyledon to 12 leaf stage, 650 mils to 1.1 litres with a Roundup, with the option of a sequential application of Nuquat to pick up any new germinations or plants that were missed. When we get to the bigger plants, the recommendation again is those same rates, with that sequential application 7 to 14 days after the first, and also barley.
Just wondering if the water volume said 70 litres. Have you done any trials to less and more?
It's all about coverage.
Litres of water,
yeah,
coverage,
water volume does improve performance. You're just getting better coverage, more droplets on the leaf.
But is there a? Can you go too far as well?
I haven't gone over 100 litres per hectare.
Yep. Frank, do we still have the same antagonism between Roundup and Amicide chasing grasses? It's
not going to change the biological antagonism with that Roundup Surpass or Amicide that you saw with Amicide Advance.
So if we're chasing grasses, separate application of Roundup?
Or keep your glyphosate rate robust.
What are your thoughts on using spray oils, like oils, just with a straight Amicide or a straight?
I didn't put it up, but we have seen it's been variable, but we have seen some improvement in some trials with that Amicide plus an oil on fleabane, but not consistently. It may be a reflection of growing conditions, sort of those hotter, drier conditions, perhaps where you've got less leaf. So it's a bit variable, but yes, we do see an improvement. But it's variable. We don't always get that improvement.